CA preschool teacher blasts Innocence, says toddlers should be taught queerness, sexuality in classroom. August 14, 2023. In education, news. A preschool teacher repeatedly attacked the idea of childhood innocence and claimed that topics considered inappropriate can be shared with children, according to his scrubbed social media accounts. The California teacher, Willie Villalpando, has said the idea of childhood innocence is a myth, and claimed topics deemed inappropriate, such as queerness, can be suitable for the pre-K age group. The Rialto Unified School District was asked months ago whether Villalpando was currently employed there and working with its school children. They did not respond. However, after receiving a tip from a concerned source, it can now be confirmed the teacher works at Trapp Preschool. There is a common mythology that children live in this world of pure innocence, and that by introducing or exposing them to the real world, adults are somehow shattering this illusion for them. Therefore, there is a banning of topics and issues that children should not be exposed to, as if they are not experiencing them already, he said. Villalpando describes himself as an expert at developing a child's gender identity, according to his scrubbed website reviewed by Fox News. He stated on his website, "While I absolutely love working with young children, my passions really lie in teaching others why we do the things we do, and advocating on behalf of young children and their families. My research and interest areas is in gender development in young children, and the impact that early educators have on that development." Villalpando also answered a question about whether speaking to preschool kids about gender and sexuality is inappropriate. "Absolutely not," Villalpando said, defending the topics. "Infants begin making gendered association by the time they are 10 months old. By the time they are 3, most children can label what gender they believe they identify with, and by 4 they can tell you what that gender means for what they can or cannot do." He went on to claim that 3-year-olds can be discriminating agents in society. With race, when a child is 3 months old, they begin to visually discriminate based on race, favoring those that are the same race as their caregivers. Children as young as 2 begin to use race to reason about people's behaviors, he claimed. He concluded, "Children experience gender and race every day. They need, and deserve, to see themselves to feel seen, and them to see others not like them." On another occasion, he said on his Instagram, "I'm tired of the childhood innocence argument. Stop blaming a phenomenon that doesn't exist." He went on to attack the idea that children shouldn't be exposed to sexuality, claiming that such a view is a very white, Christian, upper-class, cisgendered, and heterocentric. Not talking about queerness in the classroom is not letting children be children. It's telling those people they do not deserve to exist, he said in September 2021. Kids are never too young. Let's work to deconstruct some of our own biases. Adults incorrectly link discussions on sexuality and gender as equating to discussions about sex, the early childhood educator said. He said in a November 2022 podcast of Rainbow Parenting that we have so many people who tell us that this is inappropriate stuff we can't talk about. And so I'm like, hey, no, we can talk about this. The teacher went on to say that if parents didn't have the conversations with kids, it was up to teachers to foster classroom environments that may make others uncomfortable. Children who are exposed to environments with more fluid understandings of gender are more likely to understand that gender is fluid. He added that educators should talk to little kids about queerness even if parents have avoided the topic. Parents haven't already had conversations about these things with their kids, that kids don't know, that they might be intersex, that they might be a gender, non-binary. And really, children have a right to see themselves in our classrooms. It's not okay to just forget about them or push them out just because it might make us uncomfortable or may make others uncomfortable. According to Villalpando, talking to children about gender includes telling them that it is a social construct. This goes alongside teaching children to ask others for their pronouns.
Embracing queerness in the classroom. October 11, 2020. In order to address the ways in which our education system is intrinsically homophonic, transphobic, biphobic and oppressive towards queer and trans people, we must first vocally acknowledge the issues within the system that cause it to be this way. Only then can we begin to make a conscious effort towards changing the ways in which we teach in order to make them more inclusive and representative of all individuals. In deepening the discussion, gender and sexual diversity, the Saskatchewan Ministry of Education provides a detailed explanation of many important terms and concepts related to gender and sexual diversity and proposes a number of steps schools and teachers can take to help create a learning environment that is more supportive of gender or sexually diverse students. The Ministry of Education provides a wide range of ideas to help educators and school systems teach in a way that is more inclusive of gender and sexually diverse students. Seemingly small and simple things, such as using the pronouns they and their instead of he and she, can make a big difference. Page 3. They also provide school-wide suggestions, such as encouraging students in forming a Gay-Straight Alliance, GSA, to support school environments that are safe for, inclusive of, and responsive to gender and sexually diverse people. Page 70. In addition, schools should ensure they have policies in place to properly accommodate transgender students, so they are able to access washrooms, change in locker rooms, and participate in school sports without any kind of embarrassment or discrimination. Page 28. It is also important to remember that representation matters. Using resources in the classroom that include genderqueer, sexually diverse, and transgender characters or role models will help gender and sexually diverse students feel accepted and safe in their classroom. Page 23. I think integrating queerness into curriculum and classroom practices is a very important part of supporting your students. To me, integrating queerness means that you are striving to be the best teacher you can be. It means that you refuse to blindly accept the norms our society has surrounding teaching and curriculum. Instead, you are making a conscious effort to teach in a way that is effective and inclusive for all of your students, regardless of whether it is viewed as normal or taboo. I hope to integrate queerness in my classroom by providing students with choices. I want to have flexible seating options and allow my students to choose where they sit each day. I will listen to my students and provide them choices in how and when they are evaluated on their learning. I will also integrate queerness by sharing my pronouns with my students to help them know my classroom is a safe space. I also think that small things, such as showing a funny or interesting daily video that happens to include gender, sexually, and racially diverse people would be a great way to include queerness in my classroom in a way that is enjoyable for everyone. As mentioned in Queering Classrooms, Curricula, and Care, Stories from Those Who Dare. Teachers have a responsibility to care for and support every single one of their students. The article states that CR is considered both a value and obligation of what it means to be a teacher. Page 175. I believe educators should provide their duty of care for all students by encouraging inclusivity and actively dismantling any kind of oppressive behavior. This also means that teachers have a duty to include topics pertaining to sexual and gender minority groups in their classroom materials and discussions, at an age-appropriate level of course. In order to succeed in providing their duty of care, teachers must celebrate each of their students. Maintaining a classroom free from any notion of sexuality does not make sexually and gender-diverse students feel supported, and it will probably actually make them feel invisible. This is why it is so vital that teachers focus on caring for all their students with an equal amount of support and representation in the classroom. By Sarah Stroda. Steph Bueller. October 12, 2020 at 2:38 p.m. Reply. Hi Sarah. I think you did a great job answering all of the questions and going into detail about them. I also talked about in my post about change rooms and washrooms, as well as using preferred pronouns for each student. I think these are just simple little things that we should have already been doing to support LGBTQ+ students. I wrote my assignment 1 on LGBTQ+ and curriculum, and one of the things that stood out to me in one of the articles was that this is not just a one-day topic, it is something that needs to be integrated and taught every day. How would you integrate this into maybe the tougher subjects such as math and science? Sarah Stroda. October 15, 2020 at 11:23 a.m. Reply. Hi Steph. As a math major, I am definitely always thinking about how I could integrate queerness in my future classroom. One idea I mentioned in my post is doing a fun daily video, something funny or interesting for my students to look forward to each day. I would ensure that the videos I show include gender, sexually, and racially diverse individuals. I think this would be a light-hearted way to demonstrate that my classroom is a safe and accepting environment.
Queering the curriculum. November 29, 2021. One by Jordell LeChuck. Integrating queerness into curriculum studies to me has to be done through a variety of ways. Initially, as Heather Sykes suggests in Queering Curriculum Studies, I have to recognize my own white privileges, and how I am caught up in it in personal, political, and theoretical ways, and how it all affects queerness. I also need to bring awareness to how these stigmas and bias against queerness have came as a result of underlying racist and eugenic logics, visibility seeing is believing, atavism fears of transformation, and miscegenation fear of mixing, as Sykes puts it. In my future classroom, I want to make clear to the students to acknowledge and understand that identities are much more complex than what society has previously led most to believe. I want the classroom to be a safe place where students can express themselves as they please. I plan to use queer perspectives and advocate by using my white privilege and power stance to spread awareness on queerness and speak up to support the community in as many ways as I can so they get a voice and see a perspective they can relate to. I will also be prepared to disrupt any common misconceptions or rebuttals that students may express in class, and introduce ways to work against those views. Queer sexual identity marking can be found to be both similar and different from other forms of sexuality marking. Through the paper and study, as a sort of blanket term, qualitative anal uses soft queer sexual identity marking, we find that the term queer depends on the context and situation in most cases. It can be used as a wide general term in some cases, while a specific term in others. The paper describes queer as being often used as an umbrella term to describe non-cisgender and non-heterosexual individuals or those outside of traditional gender roles or sexual binaries. An intention of the use of the word queer is to break the traditional view of one's sexual identity acting as a binary system. The study found that many people use the general term of queer to avoid explaining their sexuality in more detail, which commonly brought along more questions and bias. The term queer is similar to other forms of sexuality marking in ways that it relates to one's identity. However, it differs from other forms of sexuality marking as it is a general term that can account for a variety of both gender and sexual orientation that don't uphold binary constructs, such as other identities do. Through the article Post-Gay, Political, and Pieced Together, Queer Expectations of Straight Allies, we are introduced to the different expectations some queer students look for in their allies. They have categorized these different views in terms of either post-gay, political, or pieced together expectations. The post-gay expectations of their allies were described to be uninvolved or only minimally involved in a broader LGBTQ+ rights movement, and more seen as a friendship, as it was thought to be because their queerness was insignificant in their self-perception. Whereas the political expectations envisioned their allies to be politically engaged in ways that would benefit the larger queer community, and to embrace queerness just as queer people themselves had embraced their own identities. The pieced together expectations differed in the ways the post-gay and political expectations did, and instead consisted of a variety of unique expectations. Keeping in mind these different expectations for an ally, teachers should consider all perspectives and collaborate methods to express that as such. However, there are other perspectives to be mindful of, as some queer individuals would rather their allies not advocating queerness because it draws too much attention to them. This puts teachers in a difficult position when students express different feelings towards what their allyship would look like to them. Therefore, a teacher might implement ways of understanding how their students would like them to express their involvement, awareness, and relationship to meet their best needs, and adjust them as needed.